Hi, my name's Christian, and let's draw something interesting. This is a map that I recently did for cartographersguild.com competition, and as you can see, this map has, among other things, ocean, deserts, green stuff, but it has a lot of mountains on it, and mountains are what I want to concentrate on drawing today and share with you the technique I use to produce mountains of the kind that you see here. So I'm going to go to a blank area, relatively blank area of the map, and I'm going to go ahead and just take my pen and brush, and I'm going to just sort of draw a vaguely mountainous shape. And we'll take that as our base, and what I'll do is duplicate the little layer that I just created to draw that on and hide the duplicated image, and then let's work on this one. So first of all, you're going to notice that horizontally speaking, the two ends of the mountain here and here should be at about the same level. If you have them at different levels, it's going to look a little weird, and it's implying things about the ground that the mountain is sitting on that you may not intend. The other thing is, as you get towards the ground, most mountains don't just kind of spring out at a 30-degree angle or 45-degree angle, whatever. Most mountains kind of trail off into the ground in sort of a horizontal fashion. So as the ends of the mountain go into the ground, they should flatten out like that. Then you're going to need to have some ridge lines, some contour lines coming down from the mountain. This is what's going to give it the illusion of three-dimensionality. Right now, it looks as if we're looking at it straight on, whereas what we want is to be looking at it from this isometric perspective, sort of a down angle perspective that these other mountains have. So how are we going to achieve that? We're going to throw in, there are different methods here, and I'm going to go into a few different methods of doing it, but the most basic one is to just kind of start near the top, near the peak, and just pick a direction and then give it a nice ridge line coming out towards the viewer. And I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of a wiggle as I come on down, and then I'm going to trail off. And so this makes it look like the mountain is sort of coming towards us in this direction. You can have the ridgeline going any which way, and we'll do it different ways. But let's see, that one doesn't look quite right to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw another one down, and this time I'm going to pay more attention to what I'm doing and come down like that. Okay, that looks a little bit more realistic to me. And the trick here, the thing that has sort of become automatic for me, but which I think takes time, is you're trying to imagine this in a three-dimensional space as you're adding details, and your imagination will tell you where to add those details. So we have a ridgeline coming towards us here, and we can put some ridge lines going sort of back away from us here to make this mountain feel even more like it's sitting on this plane. So what I'm going to do is going to pick bumps here, these little promontories on this ridge line on the side, as my jumping off place to throw down some extra contour lines coming off the back. And as you can see, as I put these down, they kind of follow a pattern where the higher it is on the mountain, the sharper it has to come down. Still give it a little bit of a wiggle, and then as you get towards the end, you trail off. And what you'll see here is the pattern is the furthest ridge line here is this far out, and then this far, and then this far, and then this far. So as they go back, they sort of recede in space. Same thing over here. Since we're seeing a lot of the backside of the mountain here, let's not see as much of the backside of the mountain over here, but we'll pick this promontory and we'll come on down and trail off like that. So we're kind of seeing the back side of the mountain a little bit. Now, whenever I connected it up like this, I'm going to actually take my eraser tool and I'm going to just swipe through the ink there so that I'm following sort of a rule that I've set for myself about not connecting lines and not overlapping lines. It's a way to make the inks look more elegant, I think, but it's a personal preference. Whenever I do that, I want to have these lines not quite connect. If you'll notice down in these mountains, the line comes and it rolls along, but it doesn't intersect. Your mind draws the intersection for you. And so that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do here. Now you can see that the mountain I'm drawing is rather large compared to these other mountains, but that's okay. This process is, size independent. I'm going to switch over to my ink drawing tool again, and let's just do a little bit of work on this front ridge line coming down here. So I showed you how to add some contour lines on the side ridge lines coming off that way. You can add some more, like you can put a little ridge line coming off the back side like that, maybe a little extra one coming over like that, filling in. I'm kind of assuming my light direction. For me, for some reason, as you can see with the shadows here, for some reason I usually think the light's coming from this direction. You can do it a different way, but that means I'm going to tend to put more detail over here, more dark detail, and have more sparse, lighter details over on the light side. And so as you can see, this works with both line art only, or it works with adding shadows in later. It's sort of a multi-pronged technique that can work in either direction. So with this front ridge line, again, we have those little wiggles I put in that form natural promontories on the ridge line. So this is a dip in the ridge line here that dips back towards the center of the mountain, and this one kind of comes out towards the viewer a little bit. And so as a promontory here, I'm going to take this and I'm going to have a bit of a contour ridge line coming off of it and heading down like this, down into this little natural valley in between. And now that I'm establishing a little valley here, I'm going to add some little contour lines coming off of these promontories that go off into the little valley. And on this side, which way would those contour lines go coming off into the valley? I would get little contour lines kind of coming down like this from, various places here and there. Not super important exactly which places you pick. But as you can see, this starts to make it look like, hey, there's a little valley there. And you can add some little details, little contour lines coming down. Again, I'm going to follow my rule, and I'm going to swipe through here and make these lines not quite connect so that my front ridge line now is more like a ridge line that you're seeing in your mind's eye, suggested by these lines. You can see that ridge line is still there, but now it's made up of these multiple lines and not just one big sort of clumsy line. What do we do on the other side? Well, if we had steep lines coming off of the ridge line on the back side of it, we want to have less steep lines coming off the ridge line on the front side of it. So if this is the front side, we've got this valley over here that looks narrow from our perspective. This big valley here is going to look really wide to our perspective. So we need to have those contour lines, ridge lines, coming down at a shallower angle. So I'll switch back to my pen tool, and I'm going to pick these promontories. Here's a promontory that was still there. I'm going to come off of it and give it a little bit of a wiggle as I come down, and I'm going to pick another one here and come on down, and maybe another one there. So steeper lines on the back side, shallower lines on the front side. Over here, again, this is the back side of the ridge as far as the viewer is concerned. So we got steep lines that are following the contour mostly, because that's all you'd be able to see. But on the front side, you're going to have lines that come off at a much shallower angle relative to the master original ridgeline there. So I'm going to get some ridgelines coming down. We can even have like a hint of them, some of them crossing over the valley, maybe coming up on the other side. Over here we can have a few little lines here and there, giving us some detail. Here though, we're looking at the top of the mountain. Everything on the top of the mountain is going to tend to be more harsh, more steep, more vertical. So as you can see on the ridgeline here, as I'm coming down, I'm going to tend to have little detail lines coming off fairly steep. And then as they get lower, I'm making the angle lower and lower as I go. And I'm using these little wiggles, all the little promontories that I've created just by randomly wiggling the pen, as places that I'm going to jump off from when I'm adding the new lines. So like this little bump here tells me I'm not going to just draw a line like that. That's going to sort of interfere with the line that I've already put. I'm going to say, okay, this bump tells me that I need to have my line start here, my little lesser line here. I don't want to interfere with any of the lines that I've already put down. And since, again, the light source coming from this direction, I'm going to tend to put more of the detail over here in the shadow, sort of making an artificial shadow, and a little bit less of the detail over here. And I can, do a little bit of fill in, So there's a way to make a mountain that looks like you're looking at it, looking down at it from high in the air, from a distance. And now that we've done it that way, we can try it some other ways.